Hello, everyone. This is Lee Harper, owner of Red Clay Waste Solutions. We are a roll-off dumpster rental company located here in the Northwest Georgia area, serving anywhere from Calhoun to Ottawa, to Lafayette, out to Chatsworth, and kind of everything in the middle. Tunnel Hill, Fort Oglethorpe, Dalton, Cohutta, Barnell. Uh, we're our goal is to be your trusted go-to source anytime you need a roll-off dumpster. So this is going to be the launch of what I'm going to call Trash Talk with Lee, and it's essentially where I'm going to invite small business owners, entrepreneurs that would love to go a ride along with me in my truck, lovingly called Red Clay One. Um, and I just want to hear about their origin story. For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with people's stories, their backgrounds, how they got to where they're at, the struggles they went through, behind the scenes stuff that, nobody really sees, except for those very close to that person, and everyone else just kind of sees the results of their work and what they've done, that kind of thing. Uh, I've always been obsessed with it, and mainly because I come from, some very humble beginnings, if you will. I grew up in a trailer park in Barnell off Rauschenberg Road. I lived there until I was about 5 years old, or I'm sorry, I was about fifth grade. And then we moved from there to a small piece of land in Tunnel Hill off of Lake Cathy Road, for those that are familiar with the area. And I've been able to go on and I think, have a pretty successful life so far. Not the most successful by any means, but it took me a while to accept that I started, at a pretty rough spot and was able to get somewhere. And I've been pretty happy with it. I've been married to my amazing wife for be 21 years in August. We have two amazing kids. I could not be more proud of my family. I could not. They mean everything to me. Everything I do is for them. I think they know that. After graduating high school at Northwest, I moved off to college, University of West Georgia. That's where I met my wife my freshman year. I graduated from there with a bachelor's degree in marketing, thinking I was going to go to law school after that, just because it seemed like the right thing to do, because I didn't know what I wanted it to do. So I tried to do that. That didn't exactly work out. Studied for the LSATs, put a lot of time and effort into it. Ended up essentially just walking away from it. I decided it just wasn't for me. My heart wasn't in it. So then I thought about, okay, what do I want to do? When I was an undergraduate at West Georgia, one of the things I enjoyed the most was all the extracurricular stuff, of course, Greek life, student government, volunteering with programs like the Children's Miracle Network Marathon, and a lot of other things. And I really enjoyed everything about that. So I started looking into, working in higher education, as an advisor in student government, Greek life, programs and organizations like that. So, fun story. I wanted to go back to West Georgia just because it was comfortable, but they didn't have a program directly geared towards that. A lot of schools do. West Georgia didn't. But I had a really good relationship with the vice president of student services there, and talked to her about, what I wanted to do, or what I thought I wanted to do at the time anyway. And so she got with the Department of Education at the school, and they worked it out that I could do an independent study with the vice president. So I signed up to get a degree in Masters of Education and Counseling, and typically you have elective classes you can take that will help gear you towards being a school counselor or being a like a private license counselor that you might go and talk to. Well, instead of taking any of those classes, I did independent studies with the vice president of student services, completely geared towards learning the world of student advising, at the university or higher education level, however you want to say that. So that's what I did. So I got my master's in that, and tried to find a job after that at a school that was for a job that what I had studied for. And unfortunately, I couldn't find anything at that time without having to move my newly married wife after about 2 years and myself somewhere, and we just weren't ready for that. So I found a job with the Boy Scouts of America. I was a Boy Scout growing up. I'm an Eagle Scout from a troop out of Varnell. So scouting had always meant a lot to me. And I never really thought about the professional side of it until someone that I knew had done it, and they told me about it. Scouts mainly because I just felt like I wasn't getting where I wanted to be as fast as I wanted to get there, essentially. I found out about Aldi, great company. It was a great program. I got hired directly on as a district manager. Spent 1 year in training around Atlanta, and then got my first district outside of Atlanta. And I think I had stores in Conyers, Georgia, Covington, Stockbridge, Atlanta, like Moreland Avenue area. And that was my territory for a few months. And then Aldi asked me to move to Asheville, North Carolina to take over a district that they needed a district manager there immediately, just because they actually let go of the district manager that was there for whatever reason. So that my boss called me on a Wednesday, and that Friday my wife and I were in Asheville looking at houses with a real estate agent. Made an offer on a house that weekend. I drove my wife back to Atlanta or Conyers, repacked my car, and then drove back that same day so I could be at work in my new territory Monday morning. So called on a Wednesday, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina by the following Monday, ready to do what I need to do. Spent about 3.5 years in Asheville. We loved it. If you've never been, it's a fantastic place to visit. The Biltmore House is there, if you didn't know that. It's incredible. And then if you like outdoor activities, hiking, anything like that, there's tons of it up there. It's one of the best places to go for that. And great restaurants, and also, I don't know if it still is, but at one point Asheville was the microbrewery capital of the U.S. So you could literally find a brewery around every corner, which, if you like beer, there's nothing wrong with that. And so we really enjoyed our time there. But again, after about 3.5 years, Aldi asked me to move to Pittsburgh in a project manager role. Essentially, Aldi bought out a smaller grocery store chain called Bottom Dollar. They're mainly in Pennsylvania, between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and I was tasked with leading a team that would go up there and convert these newly purchased Bottom Dollar stores into Aldi stores. So I led a team of about 5 or 6 other district managers, and after our construction team went in and did their job, my team would go in and set the shelving, order all the groceries and set the store, and just essentially got it ready for grand opening. Signage, displays, you name it, my team took care of it. I did that for exactly 1 year, and then Aldi asked me, and then I was offered a promotion. Sorry if I keep hitting the microphone, I'm not used to having it there. Anyway, Aldi offered me a promotion after about a year to a director of warehouse operations and logistics out in Denton, Texas. And Denton's just north of Dallas. So if you have Fort Worth, Dallas, and then Denton, so it kind of makes a triangle. So we moved out there, and I was so excited because the entire time you're a district manager, you're working to get that promotion to a director. And there are various director levels, and I just happened to get, chosen for the director of warehouse operations. Zero warehouse training, but that's where all the, excels in training. As soon as I got promoted, they put me in. I went through 3 straight months of training. I spent about half of that time in the Hartford, Connecticut area, and Aldi's South Windsor division. Beautiful part of the country. I'd never been to that part of the, that far northeast before. And then I spent the other half training with the warehouse director in Pittsburgh. And then after those 3 months, we picked up and moved to Texas, thinking that's where, we were going to be for the long haul, because historically that had been the case. Once you made it to a director level, you're kind of set, for a good long time. But that wasn't the case for us. Aldi came to me after about a year of being there, and they told me they wanted me to move to Richmond, Virginia, to open up a brand new distribution center. I was really hesitant, really didn't want to move. We loved where we lived. We were just getting settled in after about a year. But when you're asked to do something, you kind of just have to say yes, sir, and go take care of the next thing. And honestly, it wasn't all bad. Richmond, one of my very best friends lived there, and he actually worked at Aldi as the director of store operations. So I was really excited knowing I was going to get to work with him again, because the first 4 years of my career, I worked with this guy. We became very, very close, and so he got promoted and moved off, and then I moved off, and then we were able to come back together in Richmond. So that was fun. So I can't hate all of it, but we did have to move again. This time it was to open up a brand new warehouse facility. Essentially I got handed the keys to a $75 million building that was completely empty, and I had to organize the team to go in and get it ready to service all the stores in the region. So, got to go in and put the product layout in, ensure you're compliant from all the safety regulations, FDA, EPA, Department of Homeland Security. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff. So I had a team of warehouse managers that reported to me, and we spent 8 months, recruiting about 120, 130 new people. Had to train all 130 of them, and get the facility ready. Just like grand opening for a new store, we had to be ready, grand opening as a new distribution center. So spent about 8 months getting it ready, and then we went live, and then I operated it for just about 3 years or so. I ran it as the director after opening it. Again, thinking, that's where I was going to be. It's going to be set. Was excited. We after being there for as long as we were really connected. Active in the church. Lots of friends. The kids had friends. It was good. Things were good. And then Aldi comes knocking again and asks me this time to do the same thing, but they wanted me to move to the Mobile, Alabama area and open up a new facility in Loxley, Alabama, which Loxley is on the east side of the Mobile Bay. So that's what we did. We packed up and moved again down the way. We bought a house in Fairhope, Alabama. If you've never been, Fairhope's amazing. It's kind of one of those movie towns that you see, like a Hallmark movies, that kind of thing. So if you've never been to Fairhope, I highly recommend it. Great restaurants, great people. It's an incredible town. But anyway, we picked up, moved there again. Same thing, spent about 8 months or so, leading a team of warehouse managers and, take an empty box and get it ready, to service all these stores in the region. Again, that's where I thought I was going to be long term. That's where my family thought we would be long term. And it just didn't happen the way we thought. So that's how I ended up back in the Dalton, Georgia area. I graduated from Northwest in 2001, moved off to college, and I've been gone for over 20 years. And then when it was time to leave Aldi, I was just looking for, different jobs out there, and I found one in Dalton. I wasn't necessarily looking at, coming back, but that's where the job was, so that's where we went. And, I was excited. I hadn't, my best friends are here. I had not lived, close to friends and family in years. And so it was exciting to think that we'd have an opportunity to come back and do that. And so we did. I got a job working for a company called CJ Logistics. They're a third-party logistics company. They do a lot of different things for different companies, in terms of logistics, warehousing, distribution, you name it. If it's in the warehousing logistical world, CJ probably has a solution for it. And our customer here was Q-Cells. We supported all of the Q-Cells facilities, shipping, receiving, and some production support, that kind of thing. But unfortunately, Q-Cells decided to not renew their contract with CJ and move on with someone else, and that put my family and I again back in a situation where we were probably going to have to move. That's what it felt like anyway. CJ's a great company. I genuinely enjoyed the year I spent with them. They offered to move us to a couple of different locations, which each location would have probably been fine. And CJ's a company that I would not hesitate, working with at all. But, after moving that many times, my family and I, we were just tired. We just didn't want to move anymore. We had started enjoying, being able to go see family, just whenever we wanted to. We were friends and just casually hang out, that kind of thing. And so we didn't want to move. So I tried finding another job, in the area, but my background is really tailored to warehousing and distribution, that kind of thing. I've led teams as many as 250 people, under me with, anywhere from 5 to 6 direct reports. And Dalton's more of a manufacturing town. I don't have a lot of manufacturing experience, so I wasn't, finding anything that really fit. And so, owning my own business is something I've always wanted to do, but, that's a scary thing. I was comfortable, I had good jobs that, that took care of my family. So, it's hard to walk away from that. And so as much as I had talked about wanting to own my own business, that kind of thing, I was too scared to do it. I mean, it's just, to make that leap. But, we got here, and after not being able to find a job, I started researching different franchise opportunities, things like that, running business ideas by my friends, so on and so forth. And I came across a dumpster franchise, looked into it heavily, had a few different interviews with the company, really liked them. But after looking at everything, I realized that, I could do this on my own. I didn't need to go through a franchise, so that's what I did. So I found out about, the CJ situation in June, and then probably September of last year is when I finally made the when I made the decision I was going to move forward with opening up my own business. And so I just started researching and planning, trying to learn as much about the roll-off dumpster industry as I could, researching pricing, developing a website, just literally getting anything and everything, ready. And then I knew I had a hard out with CJ middle of March of this year. And so I just worked and got everything ready to that point to where, I turned in my 2-week notice with CJ, and then I was able to, jump right into, my roll-off business, Red Clay Waste Solutions. So if you stuck with me, this long, I appreciate it. That's kind of my story, how I got to where I'm at. We're a new business. I've only been in operation for a little over a month now. We got a long way to go. I wake up every day, just hoping, that we get a dumpster order, praying over it. My faith, is a big part of this. My walk with God, I really feel like He's been, with my wife, my family, and I, in every step of the way, kind of guiding us to get to this point. Because as scary as it's been, starting my own business, and I don't have a paycheck coming anymore, that kind of thing. I really have to, rely on my faith, and that's been a huge part of this. But we got a long way to go. I'm very excited for the future. I got some other things planned for Red Clay Waste Solutions. We're not just going to stick with roll-off dumpsters. I want to get into some additional waste management services, things like that, down the road as we get more established. But, the things that are important to me is really being a partner in the community. All my time with the Boy Scouts and, volunteering with other organizations, being a part of the community is really important to me. And it's just because we have to support each other. We have to, support those that we, live near, work near, because the more we support them and the better everybody else is, the better quality of life we can all have. So anyway, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get rolling with Trash Talk with Lee. I've got a couple of guests coming up. My first guest in the next week or so that I'm excited about to hear their stories, how they got started. And if you know anybody else that you think should come along for a ride in Red Clay 1 and tell their story, send me a message. I'd love to meet anybody and everybody that's willing to go for a ride. I don't have cooties. I'm easy to talk to, and I love meeting new people, and I love hearing, their stories, because we all have a story. Something I've always said is, we've all started somewhere. So anyway, now you know a little bit more about myself, how I got here, and I look forward to sharing the stories of more individuals from our great town and community, because there's a lot of great stories. We have so many amazing people from this area that have started some great companies and are doing some amazing things for our community, and I can't wait, to share their stories with the rest of the world. So, again, thank you for riding along, and until next time, this is Red Clay Waste Solutions, serving our community one roll-off at a time.